Good. Shabbat Shalom. Welcome to our Hanukkah service. There are still a few people walking in, and as you can see, still setting up our candles. I hope you're doing the same at home. And we'll start in just a second or two. If you are setting up your candles at home, it's 6 tonight, plus the extra one to light the 6. And as you set up your Chanukiah, or Chanukah menorah, you always set the candles from right to left, the way we read in Hebrew. So always the first candle of the first night is always the first one reset every night. And then you'll see when we light, we actually light the opposite. We light the newest candle first, from right to left, so that we bring balance to the force. And Jal is going to start us with some Chanukah medley. Shabbat Shalom. Chag Sameach. Chag Sameach. Chag. So there's a lot of chas there. Chag Chanukah. Chag Chanukah Sameach. You see that? You see that? That's how we did that? All right, try. Chag Chanukah Sameach. Good. Good. Get spittoons over there if you want. Welcome, everybody. I just want to announce that this is a first tonight. We have brought Zoom back. For some reason, we heard that people were missing Zoom. I didn't know that would ever happen, that people would miss Zoom. But there were a few members of our community who, as we started to do those Shabbat services and live stream them, which is really just a one-way directional, they were missing the friendship, the virtual friendship that having all the little squares in the Zoom feed was allowing them to have. So in addition to our live streaming, which you can still do, you can also, the link to the Zoom broadcast was in the newsletter this week. And if you want to see who's on, who's watching with you, and see other members of the community, you're welcome to join us. There is one person who is sharing the screen of this live streaming so everybody can see what's going on. Just a little bit more that we are adding to help make community. And if that's important, and I know that's important for a lot of us, you have now access to watching this on Zoom as well. Participating in this on Zoom as well. So find the link if you want, if you don't know, and now you know. We start with a song tonight. We have to light the Hanukkah candles first, because once we light the Shabbat candles, then nothing else can be lit. So it always is Hanukkah candles first on a Friday night, then Shabbat candles. At the end of Shabbat, Saturday night, with the first 3 stars in the sky, we do the Havdalah, and then we light the Hanukkah candles. See, that's kind of the way it has to go. We start with, in your handout, you should have received a little handout if you're here. If you're participating from home, it was part of the link from the newsletter as well. We are actually starting at the bottom of page 1. And I like to start with the song by Peter Yarrow, Light One Candle, because we don't sing the whole song, but we sing 8 verses. And those 8 lines are, to me, connecting to each of the candles of the holiday of Hanukkah. So if you just look at the lyrics right now, you know, the first line, light one candle, right? That's for gratitude. We're giving thanks. And I think those set the energies for the holidays beautifully. We give thanks. We give thanks. So we can be here thanks to not just the Maccabee children, but to all of those Jews over the millennia who have carried the lighting of Hanukkah forward. Those who, even in the concentration camps and the death camps, found makeshift, Chanukkiot to light their candles, even in those darkest of time. The second night is very much connected to what I just shared. It's the light that celebrates the courage to fight for our right to exist. The third night, the third candle, the kavanah, the intention for that is justice and freedom. And then the fourth night is for the wisdom that leads to peace. Peace doesn't just happen. It comes from a place in us. It cannot be something we impose on the outside. It has to be lit, kindled on the inside. The fifth night is the strength we need for self-care. The strength we need, but for self-care. Oftentimes, we're so preoccupied with giving back to the outside world or contributing, that we neglect ourselves. Well, there is a whole night that was last night that we were to center ourselves on self-care. Tonight, the 6th night, it's opening us to compassion for those who are suffering. It's a perfect energies for Shabbat. Tomorrow night is a candle for unity and oneness. To remember that beyond the seeming separations, the seeming otherness, we are truly all expressions, all designs of the one tapestry of the universe. And then the last night, we close Chanukah with, according to the song, the way we sing it here, to remember our interbeingness, our interconnectedness, what binds us together, the light that is our source and our shared beingness. So that's the song we're going to sing tonight.
Light one candle for the Maccabee children. Give thanks that their light didn't die. Light one candle for the pain they endured when their right to exist was denied. Light one candle for the terrible sacrifice justice and freedom demand. Light one candle for the wisdom to know when the peacemaker's time is at hand. Don't let the light go out, it's lasted for so many years. Don't let the light go out, let it shine through our hopes and our fears. Light one candle for the strength that we need to never become our own foe. Light one candle for those who are suffering the gain we learned so long ago. Light one candle for all we believe in, let anger not tear us apart. Light one candle to bind us together with peace as the song in our heart. Don't let the light go out, it's lasted for so many years. Don't let the light go out, let it shine through our hopes and our fears. Don't let the light go out, it's lasted for so many years. Don't let the light go out, let it shine through our hopes and our fears. Don't let the light go out, don't let the light go out, don't let the light go out.
And we're not letting the light go out. I'm going to invite all of you to come up and get ready to light your candles tonight. At this point, just if you're participating from home, just light the shamash, the helper candle, the candle that lights all the other candles. Because you start lighting your candles when we start saying the blessing. So you have to wait. I'm going to wait until everybody has their helper candle lit and ready to kindle your Chanukiah. No, just one candle, just the first, right, the helper candle. Make sure, because we have to say the blessing together. good? So I hope by now everybody knows the blessing after the 6th night, but just in case. And ready at home? Let's do this. Baruch atah Adonai. The newest candle first. Eloheinu melech haolam. Asher kiddushanu b'mitzvotav. Vetzivanu lehadlik ner shel Chanukah. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam she'asa nisim lavotenu bayamim ahem bazman hazeh. Amen. Chag Sameach. You may be seated. The song that immediately follows, traditionally, the kindling of the Hanukkah candles is Ma'oz Tzur. It is on top of page 2 in your handout.
Tikun beit tefilati disappearing, which will see all peoples free, tyrants disappearing.
It's always so beautiful to have all our candles here together, bringing light in the space. There's all kinds of rules, by the way, around the candles. If you know anything that is connected to Jewish celebration, you know that the rabbis talked about how, when, how much, what, where, for pages and pages and pages in the Talmud. Because you couldn't have any kind of random candle, of course. That would be too easy. Actually, halachically, according to Jewish law, candles came later and they are, let's say, acceptable for Jewish law. But the preferred method is with olive oil. And so you have to have a jar of olive oil that will burn, according to the rabbis, according to the Talmud, at least 20 minutes. That's why the Hanukkah candles, if you buy actual Hanukkah candles, they are built to last 20 minutes. At least, they could last longer. For some reason, the ones I have at home this year last an hour. So it's for those who want to be really kosher. It's like, I'm not going to take any risk. I know they say 20 minutes. I'm going to go an hour. So it's nice because then you can stay with the candles and visit a little longer. You're not supposed to use the light of the candles for anything but the kindling itself. They cannot be used for light. They cannot be used for any, so you couldn't really, if you don't have, if you lose power, let's say, and you really want to finish this chapter in your book, you can't sit by the candles and read the last chapter of your book, because that violates the purpose of the candles. That they are not here to lit the space, they are here to celebrate something precise, which is, I'm going to talk about that in just a second. However, you notice that we kindled 7 candles for the 6th night because, we call it the helper candle, the shamash. Actually, in Hebrew, the word shamash is the word that gives us the word for sun. So it is a light of itself, which means that if by any accident you dropped your book open at the last chapter on the table next to your Chanukiah, you could say, I didn't use the 6 candles to read the chapter, I only used the one, the helper one, that is in fact there to light and to bring light. So you see, there's a whole legal aspect of this hidden in the gorgeousness of all of those candles anyways. So I want to tell you the story of why we came to light the Hanukkah candles. I want to do that now. Then later I'm going to talk about the way we have celebrated Hanukkah over the years, especially the last 100 years. And then I want to go into the deeper meaning of the holiday of Hanukkah, because I always want to go a little deeper than just the surface. And I'm hoping what I've prepared tonight will, in fact, blow your mind. That's a high standard I'm setting for myself right now, which is very dangerous, but I have notes, so. Alexander the Great, you probably heard of him, is dead. But in the year 329 BCE, before the COVID era, oh, no, that's a different thing. 320 BCE, Alexander the Great and his armies invaded most of the known world, including the Middle East, and that little piece of land where the Jews had been residing already for 700 years. And soon after his passing, different rulers are set around the empire And for 160 years, Jews lived under the rule of different Greek kings that succeeded themselves. And for the most part, really in pretty peaceful terms. The power of the Greek Empire as they invaded place after place was not really by the sword and by force. The power of their ability to conquer places was through a process called Hellenization. They thought of themselves highly. They thought of their culture very highly, and they thought that if they brought their incredibly advanced civilization to the countries they conquered, everybody would want to be like them. And for the most part, they were right. What they brought to us, remember, we are the people of the book, right? We've been the people of the book for 700 years, and suddenly they bring us all of their philosophers. And we're just like, wow, where can we read more of that, right? We really loved what they brought also their theater to us. That was really impressive. That was really new. We really bought into that. They brought, what did they bring? They brought their games. Sports. Jews with sports, not usually. But at that time, we wanted to participate in the games. They built arenas in the major cities even of the land of Israel at the time. And there were young boys who, that's something I just learned because of the course on anti-Semitism that I am leading right now. There were young boys who were so taken by wanting to play the games. And you could only play the games if you were naked. That was part of the whole gestalt of how you participate in the arenas, in the games. But you didn't want to be stigmatized as being other or different than your fellow competitors. And so some young Jewish boys, in order to participate and be more like anonymous, would find ways to reattach the part of the penis that was taken out from the circumcision. That's how far people wanted to be part of that civilization. I mean, obviously we have a lot of kids, Jewish kids at this point, whether in Alexandria or in Israel, who in fact take the name Alexander. We name our children by the first name of our conqueror. I mean, look how deep we got into embracing that culture. It really works. I mean, it was really overwhelming. It was really what the Hellenization was death by assimilation. That was the whole purpose. They didn't do that because they were kind and nice to the people they conquered. They just figured that within a few generations of them being there, whatever uniqueness of the people they had conquered existed would disappear, would be swallowed in, would be assimilated in the culture that Hellenism brought. They were the Borg, really. Resistance is futile. You will be assimilated. And that's how they worked. And it was, a way to do that without shedding any blood. But not everybody enjoyed that. A lot of Jews, mostly the Jews that didn't live in the main cities, who were not really touched by what the Greek Empire was bringing to those major cities, those Jews remained faithful to their traditions. And they started to revolt. They started to resist what Hellenization was bringing to them. And then at some point, one of the rulers dies, and then a new ruler is appointed. His name was Antiochus. And he, after almost 160 years, he got tired of waiting for the Jews to finally see the light and abandon their ways and become Greek, Hellenized. And so, because that wasn't going fast enough, 160 years, he was probably right, he decided to tighten the screws a little bit. He decided to now become violent. He decided to really engage in violence against the Jews. He decreed that circumcision was now forbidden, banned, that Jews could no longer study the Torah under penalty of death, that he will rededicate, and he did, the temple to the worship of Zeus, desecrated the altar of Jewish sacrifice, and started to have Greek pagan priests sacrifice pigs on the altar of the temple. That was kind of the straw that broke the Middle Eastern camel back, and a major revolt followed. Judah Maccabee and his father Matithyahu revolted and gathered most of their tribe, the Hashmonean family, to follow them in that revolt. And for years, it took years to battle against the most formidable army the world had ever known. And they won after that many years. Matithyahu died, Judah Maccabee followed and continued the battle after his father passed. And eventually they prevailed. Their tactic for war was guerrilla warfare. Now, not the gorilla, the animal. Guerrilla is a kind of warfare where you attack and then you retreat, and nobody knows where you came from or where you now have disappeared. So they could hammer blows at the troops of the Greek armies and then disappear. They knew the terrain extremely well, and time after time they dealt those hammer blows, which is actually the word hammer is come from the word Maccabee, or Maccabee comes from the word hammer, because that was their fighting, the way they fought, by hammering Maccabees. Actually, as part of the holiday in Israel, all the kids have little plastic hammers that make a lot of noise, and they bang you on your head or anywhere they can. So if you're during Hanukkah in Israel, you'll see the streets get really loud because all the kids are banging with their hammers. And then you just stuff them with sufganiyot, and then it's quiet again. The temple I was mentioning was desecrated with pig sacrifices on the 25th of Kislev, 169 BCE, which is the night that begins the holiday of Hanukkah, because at the end of the fight, on the very same day, we rededicated the temple to Jewish worship. We took the war wasn't won, but we took Jerusalem back. The Maccabees took Jerusalem back. It's going to take a little while to finish up the battles in the countryside, but Jerusalem was taken back. And exactly on the same day that it was first desecrated, the Maccabees rededicated the temple to Jewish worship. The statues of Zeus were cleaned out. They brought all of the items of the Jewish temple back up from the caves where they had been stored, hidden. And on that night, they rededicated the temple. The way you said dedication in Hebrew is Chanukah. So the word Chanukah is not the name of the holiday. It's the name of, it literally means dedication or rededication. And for us as spiritual practitioners, the holiday is also a time to rededicate ourselves to whatever is yearning to be kindled in our life. And that's a Chanukah. When we dedicate a new home and we put a mezuzah on the doorpost of the home, we call that a Chanukah bait. The Chanukah of the house, because that's what the word means. So you see, this holiday is bizarre. Because when we think of holy days, we think of celebrating something sacred, celebrating something maybe that has to do with love, compassion, No, this is a celebration of war, of victory. This is like a Memorial Day weekend, something like that. This is about war. This is about the triumph of a minority of rebels against an empire, which really gave inspiration for Star Wars. But I digress. Don't let me go that way. The 25th of Kislev is interesting because it falls really late in the year. Usually it's December, so this year we started actually with the end of the Thanksgiving weekend. We believe that the holiday of Hanukkah, the holiday of light, was really akin to, or a Jewish take on, pagan worship in the darkest times of the year, just as the days gets the shortest. And the moon wanes, so that's why also, because we are lunar and solar calendar, it's the darkest night and the shortest day during the week of Hanukkah, because the moon also disappears. So it's the darkest nights during the shortest days, even though we have until December 21st for that. But that's really the point. And it seems that, there's some years the Hanukkah is much later. In fact, next year, I think it will be the 8th candle of Hanukkah will be December 25th. Right? So that gives you a sense that all of those holidays, Christmas, Hanukkah, the pagan holidays where you made huge bonfires, were coming from that fear of darkness. That idea that the sun was never coming back. That it was going to continue go down, and the days were going to ever grow shorter until it would be pure darkness forever, right? And there was that fear, this ancestral fear that the light will not triumph. And then comes December 21st, and 21st, 22nd, 23rd, 24th. Those are 3 days where the sun stands still. Did you know that? The days remains exactly, it's the lowest, least daylight, but we're not losing anymore. And it feels like there's this battle between the light and the darkness. Which will win? And then December 25th is the first day when the light begins to, inch bigger again. It's no wonder that Christmas happens at that time. The sun is the birth of the sun on December 25th. In Christianity, is the birth of the sun, but it's all connected. There's a reason why scholars know that Jesus wasn't born at that time, but there's a reason why we celebrate that in that day. And we celebrate for 8 days because as the Hashmoneans, as the Maccabees took the temple, they said, what we're going to do is that we're going to celebrate the last holiday we couldn't celebrate, the last most important holiday of the year at the time, which was Sukkot, the pilgrimage of Sukkot. So everybody came and celebrated for 8 days because Sukkot is 8 days. Much later, the rabbis completely made up the story of Hanukkah with a light that lasted 8 days instead of 1, and the miracle of Hanukkah. That's completely invented, and we're grateful because it's wonderful. We get to have that celebration, but that came much later, and the reason it came was because the Jews continued to celebrate at that time. And even though probably the rabbis wanted to stop it because it wasn't really Jewish, right? The celebration of the dedication of the temple was not the holiday of Hanukkah, right? The 8 days were the 8 days of Sukkot. But you can't stop a people when generation after generation, they are celebrating this holiday by creating some kind of light, candles, burning, olive oil, and so the rabbis, decided we can't beat them. Let's join them. No, I mean seriously. There's no other real explanation. And so they created this whole story around reshaped that holiday, that pagan holiday, and made it Jewish, made it part of our celebration. I'll talk a little later but really that's always remained a very minor holiday, very minor holidays. Mostly because the rabbi hated the Maccabees. The rabbi just couldn't stand the Maccabees. The reason the rabbis couldn't stand the Maccabees, the Hashmonean, is because once they got into power, because they were victorious, so they took over the kingship, and then they made the big mistake to also take over the priesthood. And that was a big no-no. There was a separation of church and state in Jewish law, and they didn't care. They took both. And not only that, is that they couldn't get a hold or rule really what was going on in the country, and to help them quell all the kinds of little rebellions that were happening around, they asked the Romans to come in, to invade, to keep the peace. So here is the tribe that beats the Greek Empire, that invites the Roman Empire into the land in order to use them to keep the peace. And the Roman was like, really? We can just walk in? We don't have to fight anybody? Okay. And of course, then they took over everything and imposed a 200-year rule over the Jews that saw 3/4 of our people dead. They were the worst, most brutal rulers ever. So you can understand that those who survived, which were the Pharisees who became the rabbis, hated the Hashmoneans. That's why the book of Maccabees was never canonized in the Jewish Bible. It's a apocrypha. It's another book. It's outside of the canon. Okay. So 8 days, 8 candles. Page 3 of your handout. Ocho candelicas. Some Ladino song. So there are different Jews from different places. There are Ashkenazi Jews who speak Yiddish. There are Mizrahi Jews like me who speak Judeo-Arabic. My family spoke Judeo-Arabic. And then there are Jews who are Ladino Jews who came from Spain, who speak Judeo-Spanish, and that's called the Ladino language. And that song is written in Ladino. Ocho candelicas. You're going to have to stand for that because it's fun. Maestro. Okay.
Hang on, sorry. All right, one more time. Hanukkah lindo está aquí, ocho candelas para mí. Hanukkah lindo está aquí, ocho candelas para mí. Oh, una candelica, dos candelicas, tres candelicas, cuatro candelicas, cinco candelicas, seis candelicas, siete candelicas, ocho candelas para mí.
Muchas fiestas vou fazer con alegrías y placer. Muchas fiestas vou fazer con alegrías y placer. Oh, una candelica, dos candelicas, tres candelicas, cuatro candelicas, cinco candelicas, seis candelicas, siete candelicas, ocho candelas para mí.
Los pastelicos voy a comer, una rica sin la miel. Los pastelicos voy a comer, una rica sin la miel.
Oh, cuatro candelicas, cinco candelicas, seis candelicas, siete candelicas, ocho candelas para mí. Hanukkah lindo está aquí, ocho candelas para mí. Hanukkah lindo está aquí, ocho candelas para mí. Oh, una candelica, dos candelicas, tres candelicas, cuatro candelicas, cinco candelicas, seis candelicas, siete candelicas, ocho candelas para mí.
You may be seated unless you are lighting Shabbat candles tonight, in which case, please come forward as we sing the angel blessing on page 17 of your prayer book, not your handout. There is no 17 pages in the handout.
May our right hand bring us closer to our godliness. May our left hand give us strength to face each day. And before us may our visions light our paths ahead. And behind us may well-being feel our way. May our right hand bring us closer to our godliness. May our left hand give us strength to face each day. And before us may our visions light our paths ahead. And behind us may well-being feel our way. May our right hand bring us closer to our godliness. May our left hand give us strength to face each day. And before us may our visions light our paths ahead. And behind us may well-being feel our way. May our right hand bring us closer to our godliness. May our left hand give us strength to face each day. And before us may our visions light our paths ahead. And behind us may well-being feel our way. All around us is Shekhinah. Around us is Shekhinah. Around us
Every Shabbat, we invite members of our community to step forward, light our energies, the energies of Shabbat, by lighting our candles. And I know at home, as you're participating from home, you also are lighting your candles tonight. On our right, Claire Petersky is lighting Shabbat candles in honor of what? Her 60th birthday. Wow. Whew. Unbelievable. You don't look any day older than 25, the year I knew you, the first time. Claire has brought with her a dear friend, former member of Bet Alef, participated in the music of Bet Alef often. His name is Salim Matt Grass, and he's also lighting a candle, being with us tonight, celebrating Hanukkah, visiting from Montana. Yeah, that's what I said. It's easy enough. It's not French. Welcome. It's nice to have you here. Next to Claire is Susan Hoffman, and Susan is lighting in memory of her father, Garrison Hoffman, for his yard site. Next to Susan is Rob Spiegel, who is lighting tonight in memory of his brother Michael, Michael ben Yaakov Vesara, who passed away last Monday, November 22nd, in Louisville, Kentucky, following a long illness. Next to Rob is Celia. Celia Curran is lighting a candle tonight in celebration for Sunday's upcoming virtual Hanukkah concert with the Seattle Jewish Chorale. And she would like also to extend the light of gratitude for chorale member Naomi Adele Smith and their partner Johnny Unicorn for working tirelessly to record each chorale members' virtual performance safely in their home with our many years of musical recording experience. She's also lighting for another musical purpose. This one is in memory of musical genius Stephen Sondheim, who passed away last Friday evening at the age of 91. She says that she is grateful to have had his musical influence in her life and will cherish the legacy he leaves with us all. And next to Celia is Linda Moldauer, and Linda is lighting her candle tonight in loving memory of Otto Lowy, called Grandpop, and Sidney Gold, her father, on their yard sites. At home, Sharon and Jean Leroy are lighting candles tonight in memory of their good friend Samuel Gershonovich, who suddenly made his transition November 6th. Sam was an incredible person, and he and Sharon mediated for King County courts. Sam was born in a relocation camp, his parents being survivors of the Holocaust. His life was a testament to survival. The blessing, the words are on page 1 in your prayer book if you need them. Traditionally, we cover our eyes to remind ourselves that that which we are blessing, honoring, remembering, is the light within our heart. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kiddushanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu להדליק נר של שבת. Thank you. And as our members are regaining their seat, I just wanted to take a moment to say a little bonjour to Sharon. Sharon? Now her name is Sharon and Jean. They actually, it's wonderful to see them still connected to our community and still celebrating with us. I'm sure they will be watching this at some point tomorrow when they wake up. They have relocated to France. So it's about 5 o'clock in the morning right now, unless they're early risers. But we say bonjour to you. I just want to spend maybe just a minute on as I mentioned earlier, the different ways we have celebrated Hanukkah over the years. Because Hanukkah is one of those fascinating holidays that you can assign whatever is up right now, you can really connect to that as you celebrate the holiday. Like I said earlier, Hanukkah has always been a very minor holiday, barely noticed, barely part of the gestalt of Jews for many years. Those who were not extremely religious for the longest time did not really celebrate Hanukkah. It might seem bizarre to us because it's so important to us right now. It's mostly because of the influence of Christianity, especially in America. But the holiday itself was revived and became more prominent about 100 years ago. Because 100 years ago, Jews were coming back to the land of Israel and created what's called the Yishuv, the first Jewish settlements in the Holy Land. And they came as refugees, mostly from Eastern Europe, after the pogroms of Russia, the massacres of Russia, and they needed a place to flee. And those are the Jews who came. And so they came from hundreds of years of being beat up, of being threatened, of always being under the sword of whatever the mood of the Tsar was at the time. And they came really to escape death and brutality. And when they settled in the land and they started to rebuild a Jewish life in the land of Israel, there's always been Jewish life in Israel, but in the late 1800s and 1900s, more and more Jewish refugees came. They needed a myth to kind of change the story of persecution and oppression of the Jew who is always bent over at the mercy of his rulers. And they really embraced the story of Hanukkah. That minority who fought against the great foreign empire, the non-Jewish empire. And they really kind of began to rediscover the holiday by promoting this myth that they needed to kind of psychologically rebuild themselves, to create a nation of Jews that would see themselves differently than they used to when they were back in, as we called it, the old country of oppression and death. So that's really with the beginning. So it's not Israel yet. Israel will happen a few decades later, but that's the beginning of what's called the Yishuv, right? The resettlement of the Jews back in their homeland, and they embraced that myth. And so that's how Hanukkah became a little bit more prominent. Not quite what we know it to be yet, but the influence of the Yishuv of the time, 100 years ago, became key to what is going to spread in the rest of the Jewish world. Now, in the decades leading to the creation of the State of Israel in 1948, and especially after the Second World War and the Shoah, there was great interest in Hanukkah as emphasizing that small band of resistance, fighters, right? That fought like hammer blows, like the resistance was during the war, really, and also the resistance groups like the Haganah and the Irgun were actually also doing in those days, trying to kick the British out of the land, and also at that point already fighting an open war with the Palestinians. It started a long time ago, unfortunately. So the holiday of Hanukkah became even more important to, again, define the struggle. Now, step a little forward in time, and the 50s, but mostly like the 60s and 70s and 80s, that's the 1960s, 70s, and 80s, with Israel now born and having fought and won 3 and then 4 wars against a vast enemy of Arab lands who altogether attacked the little state of Israel. The triumph of David over Goliath in this cases brought the holiday of Hanukkah a new theme in those 3 decades that was an emphasis on being proudly Jewish, very much male masculinity of the new, we looked up to the Israeli strong, muscular, Israeli Jew who knew to defend himself, who armed himself. For 2,000 years, we never armed ourselves. And suddenly there are Jews who actually are doing that, and they work the land, and they are farmers, and they are into sports and soccer and all of those things. And for the Jews of the diaspora, that was like, wow, they were our heroes. We wanted to be like them. We wanted to go to a kibbutz. That was our ideals of the 60s and 70s. I vaguely remember those years. Mostly the 70s. The 60s I wasn't born. But never mind that. You know what I'm talking about. And then in the 90s, there was a growth of the interfaith movement, especially here in America. There was great emphasis now on building bridges and coming together in interfaith settings. And so Hanukkah became a different holiday. Now Hanukkah became the symbol of unity. It became the symbol of each of us bringing light to each other. Everybody bringing their own uniqueness, right? On the Chanukiah, we each have our own candle, and we contribute our light to the greater good of all. So the 90s were really much about interfaith, coming together, unity, and oneness. Not so much the warrior anymore. That went away. That disappeared. It's very interesting how the focus becomes different in almost every generation, depending on what's going on, right? They began to be rabbis on the fringes who used the holiday of oil, the oil we use to light the candles, to fry all the food that we eat, to talk about big oil and climate change and global scorching, global warming, global scorching. So there were ways to use the holiday of Hanukkah as a way to be also activists, as a way to bring up issues in our society. That was new. That's something that was new to Hanukkah. And again, it's like almost every decade something happens. Now, these past decades, the holidays come to be something altogether different, and really interestingly. And that's because we've seen, unfortunately, the rise of anti-Semitism here at home, in Europe, and it's changing the focus. And I'm reading a lot of what the rabbis are writing around the holidays this year, but it's not the first year. I've seen it over the last 4 or 5 years. And you can tell in what people are sharing, the talk they're writing, that the energies are shifting now. Because Hanukkah now comes to confront us with questions of identity and, in fact, emphasizing our difference. When there was a really good article this year specifically that said, I'm so glad Hanukkah is so far away from Christmas. There'll be another thing next year, but this year, some rabbis picked up on that and saying, no, we need to affirm our own identity. Hanukkah is not Christmas. I mean, it's not Christmas. This is a celebration of warfare. It's not Christmas. Different energies, different celebrations. But this year, it's come back to talking about assimilation. And how good is that? Is that something we want to pursue? Versus, can we actually take our own space in this country? Can we only actually claim our Jewish identity in this country? Kind of a little bit more of the ideals of the Maccabees without the war part of the Maccabees, at least so far, God forbid. So the concept of unity in the prior decade is now no longer center stage. That was nice, but now it's all identity politics, really. I mean, watch what's going on around. And Jews want to reclaim their Maccabeeness. Jews want to say, no, this is our holy day, you have your holiday. Hanukkah is ours, and Hanukkah is a time to affirm that identity of ours and to really take stock in how much are we assimilated. Because if we're going to be the Maccabees, then we have to, like the Maccabees did, fight against the Jews, the assimilationist Jews who disappeared into Hellenism. And so, which side are we on, right? In which ways can we reclaim our identity without letting ourselves, melt into the masses? And it's a shift because our grandparents, right? Our grandparents wanted to make us more Americans. The messages were just don't make waves, just go along. A lot of our grandparents changed their Hebrew names to English names. We wanted to stand out, right? So all of those names that ended with ski or, all of those very Russian or Jewish names, suddenly we became Jacobs or we became Peters or whatever, right? Just like at the time of Hellenism when we named our first children Alexander, which actually became a Jewish name, after so many hundreds of years. And so we can ask ourselves, and those of us who already have kids, it's a little too late, but maybe the next generation won't be so keen to give an English first name to their children. Maybe we'll be back to naming our children Moshe or, Nathan, Nathaniel, or, more Jewish names. Again, it's like are we ready to reclaim that identity for ourselves? And the questions are, when our grandparents really wanted us to pass as white, now what? Now what? What about that? Are we really wanting to continue down that road? Should we continue to be more like them, or do we want to be more like us? Should we not flaunt our quirky holidays, hide our holidays, or should we be proudly celebrating our particulars? Should we put the lit Chanukiah, the Chanukah menorah, on the kitchen counter, away from the neighbors, or can we put it in the window as the tradition actually demands that we do? Are we comfortable now enough to put our Chanukiah in the window for the rest of the neighborhood to see? So those are the questions we are discussing. Are we ready to put a mezuzah back on our door, or is it a little too much, too obvious? Should our entrance door to our house remain more neutral, less visible? I know, these are the questions that Hanukkah is bringing to us this last decade, and they are very interesting questions. I don't have answers. I think it's individual. I think all of us must wrestle with that. But I think that's the strand of reaffirming identity versus the melting pot of unity that we experience in the last decades or two. Not that we don't want to continue interfaith work, God forbid, but. So that's just all I wanted to say, just a couple of minutes on that, because I love Hanukkah for that. It's so unique, and we can make it mirror back at us where the consciousness of our civilization is in the moment. On page 2 of your handout is another Chanukah song, Mi Yemalel.
Mi yemalel gvurot Yisrael otam yimne, and bechol dor yakum hagibor goel ha'am. Who can retell the things that befell us? Who can count them? In every age a hero or sage came to our aid. Shema bayamim hahem bazman hazeh, Maccabim Moshiach ufodeh, uvyameinu kol am Yisrael, yitached yakum lehigael. Mi yemalel lurot Yisrael otam yimne, and bechol dor yakum hagibor goel ha'am. Who can tell the things that befell us? Who can count them? In every age a hero or sage came to our aid. Shema bayamim hahem bazman hazeh, Maccabim Moshiach ufodeh, uvyameinu kol am Yisrael, yitached yakum lehigael. Mi yemalel gvurot Yisrael otam yimne, and bechol dor yakum hagibor goel ha'am. Who can retell the things that befell us? Who can count them? In every age a hero or sage came to our aid.
What we don't translate in that song, that in every age a hero or sage came to our aid, but now it says now we have to do it. Now it's not we don't wait for a hero or a sage, now we have to take charge. It's a really good song. Please rise for the Baruch Hu. We are on page 5 in your prayer book. We say together, Baruch Hu et Adonai HaMevorach. Bless the Eternal, the one who is blessing. Baruch Adonai HaMevorach le'olam va'ed. Blessed is the Eternal, the one who is blessing eternally. At the top of page 6, we meet the words of the Shema, the 6 words that are the central meditation, the mantra of our Jewish tradition. Join me. Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Listen, Israel. The Eternal manifests as all that is. The Eternal is one. Baruch Shem Kevod Malchuto Leolam Va'ed. Blessed is the name. The splendor of its presence shines eternally.
Shema Yisrael Adonai Eloheinu Adonai Echad. 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 Baruch Shem Kevod Malchuto Leolam Va'ed. Baruch Shem Kevod Malchuto Leolam Va'ed. Shema Yisrael Adonai Eloheinu Adonai Echad. 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 Shema Yisrael Adonai Eloheinu Adonai Echad.
Please be seated. We continue in the middle of the page with a Ve'ahavta.
ואהבת את אדוני אלוהיך בכל לבבך ובכל נפשך ובכל מאודך והיו הדברים האלה אשר אנוכי מצווך היום על לבביך ושיננתם לבניך ודיברתם בם בשבתך בביתך ובלכתך בדרך ובשוכבך ובקומך וקשרתם להות על ידיך והיו לטוטפות בין עיניך וכתבתם על מזוזות ביתך ובשעריך למען תזכרו ועשיתם את כל מצוותיי והייתם קדושים לאלוהיכם אני אדוני אלוהיכם אשר הוצאתי אתכם מארץ מצרים להיות לכם לאלוהים Ani Adonai Elohechem.
Emet. Okay, it is time. We're going to get to the deepest aspect of the holiday of Hanukkah. I'm glad you stayed until that moment because it's going to change your life. And I'm going to be honest, I literally just learned about what I'm going to share with you. And it's always super exciting for me to discover something new after so many years about Hanukkah. And literally 2 days ago, friends of ours in Medellin, Colombia, sent a short video of this Orthodox, ultra-Orthodox rabbi talking about Hanukkah, sharing with his viewership something that he himself had just learned. Like, I'm talking about someone who is super learned in everything Jewish, right? Who's read everything from A to Z 2,500 times. And yet, there was a new teaching for him as well. And you could see on his face, he was radiating, beaming. And so what he did, it was just a few minutes, but he did kind of a review of this book that he had found about Hanukkah. And that's what I want to share with you. So bear with me because, again, I'm learning this literally within the last 24 hours, so I had to take some notes because I wanted to do this justice. The book that blew this rabbi's mind was called, in Hebrew, Emek HaSufganim. Literally translated as, the depth of the donut. What? The subtitle of the book titled Ultra-Orthodox, all in Hebrew, no translation, The Depth of the Donut, subtitled Studies and Clarifications on the Custom of Eating Donuts on Hanukkah. I kid you not, that was like 431 pages long, all in Hebrew. You thought I was joking about the discussion about the candles. 431 pages on donuts. What did you think they did with the candles? And that's not even biblical. It's a minhag, it's a custom. It's not rabbinic, it's just 431 pages on donuts. I need to tell you all about donuts. This is the most important Hanukkah of your life. All the halakha, the Jewish law that has to do with donuts on Hanukkah. Okay, one. Are you ready? It is Sufganim with an F, not Suv with a V. Sufganim as the title of the book, the Emek HaSufganim, and not Sufganiot. Just right there. Just put the kippah down. Let's go home. We're done. Sufganiot was a shortening, a diminutive, right? It's like a cutie name. Maybe because the Sufganiot became smaller. I don't know. But it is shown through all the books of rabbinic conversation. The rabbis call them Sufganim. So next time you cross somebody in the streets and they ask you, where your Sufganiot this year? I said, Sufganiot? Uh-huh. You say Sufganim. Anyways. So all the rabbinic literature from the Talmud, the Mishnah, all of those conversations about donuts, I didn't know they talked about donuts. They all call them Sufganim. Okay, one. So two. The root of Sufganim comes from the Hebrew that gives us the word for the word safag. Safag, And safag means to suck like a sponge, right? Actually, the sufganim were designed and shaped like sponges, and so the rabbis makes the claim that they were called sponges, sponge cakes, sponges. Actually, the suf, so the F in Hebrew, if you add a dot in the middle, it becomes a P, right? So it is extremely possible that the word sponge actually comes from the Hebrew sufganim. I'm serious, because that's what they called sponges. Because safag, they were used to suck up, water or whatever. Sponges do what sponges do. So that's now you know also an English word comes from the Hebrew. And the sea sponges were shaped like donuts. And they were fluffy like donuts, which give you a hint as how to have your donuts made. They need to be fluffy. So none of those, bagel donut things that are hard, that doesn't qualify. That is not kosher. Off with them. The first reference to eating donuts on Hanukkah. So there were conversations about donuts before Hanukkah, but then they became associated with Hanukkah. The first conversation, the first reference in any book that we see that this rabbi discovered and wrote a 431 pages book about was in the 12th century, the 1100s, in Spain, by a very famous rabbi, Rabbi Maimon. We maybe don't know, you might not know him, but you know his son, Maimonides. Right? Maimonides is the diz at the end, the ides, means son of. So Rabbi Maimonides was son of Maimon. So his father is the one who writes about sponges, sufganim. Moses ben Maimon was his son. That's probably when he lived in Spain, but most certainly because the family fled from the pogrom of Spain, from attacks on the Jewish communities, and they fled to North Africa. So maybe he discovered and wrote about the Sufganim as a North African Jewish ritual. They ended up in Egypt ultimately, so it could be also in Egypt. So it's possible that the tradition originated in North Africa. But then a century later, in the 13th century, we find sufganim, donuts, appear in the south of France, where I'm from. And the Jewish communities in the south of France were unique because they were a mix of Ashkenazi and Sephardi, which is going to help the donut travel to Ashkenaz, to the land of Ashkenaz, up north in the northern part of France and western Germany. And we know about the sufganim, the donuts arriving in Provence, because of a very famous rabbi. His name was Kalonymus ben Kalonymus, who wrote beautiful poetry, odes to the donuts. And so we know that from that moment that it began to be a widespread custom. I don't know if you ever read poetry about donuts. I'm sure if you go to Top Pot, they will have some for you. If not, just tell them about Kalonymus ben Kalonymus and tell them you guys are behind. We started writing poetry about donuts in the 12th century. So, things that Jews did, before anybody else. All right, the 4 major laws you need to know about your donuts. There's 4 laws. What I just shared right now was the history of it. Now, what are the laws? First, they should never be dairy. No dairy donuts, please. Never. They should be parve. They should be parve. 2, very important, they should be fluffy. Fluffy donuts. No bagel-style donuts allowed. They also have a connection, according to this very religious book, to the special temple time flour that was used to make fluffy offerings in the temple. And the temples only requested that the flour offerings were fluffy. So also a connection to the ancient temple. Most critical, very important, especially for us Americans. 3, no holes. No holes. Okay, no holes. And it makes complete sense because where I grew up, donuts, well, first of all, they were not called that, but they were called beignets. And the beignets, they don't have a hole. It's a whole round pastry, right? So it makes sense that halachically, according to the law, no holes. In fact, in Israel, if you've been to Israel during Hanukkah, some of you who are here have gone with me, and you've had sufganiyot there are no holes. They are whole. They are complete little balls of fluff and sweetness. So the hole in the donut is completely an American invention. Probably somebody who wanted to maximize profits by having less dough. I don't know. So they should be like a hole, and they should look, what our sages are saying, they should look like the manna. That should look like what the manna looked like in the desert. No wonder it was easy to go 40 years in the desert if every day you had free servings of donuts. I mean, how did they complain? Why did they complain? 40 years of donuts? Jeez. Anyway. But, we still complain because that's what we do. 4. Are you ready for 4? 4 is the Kabbalistic level. So there is always a Kabbalistic level. The Kabbalistic level is the secret level, in Jewish tradition. And the donut has a Kabbalistic secret level. And the secret level is, ready? If you are Kabbalists, your donut needs to have filling. I know. No plain donuts if you're Kabbalists. You need to have the surprise within. It's the matter of what's revealed on the outer shell and what's hidden inside the donut. Right? It's always the parallel in Kabbalah between the revealed and the obscured and the hidden. The revealed God and the hidden God. The revealed Torah and the inner hidden Torah. The play on the outer and the inner. No matter what, though, if you want to insist on having a sweet inner, make sure you have powdered sugar on the outer. I mean, you don't want your outer shell to be sweet as well. Come on. So that's really all the main things you need to know. You don't have to read the 431 pages. I give you the digests. You're welcome. And I know what your next question is, because I can hear it inside my donut mind. Rabbi, what about the latkes? Where is the book for that? There are no books about latkes, my friend. And I don't want to, I'm just the messenger here. So please, don't start throwing donuts at me. I am just reporting what the halakha is saying. I know it's going to be hard to hear, but here we go. After 431 pages, the ultra-Orthodox rabbi declared in the books called, again, because I need to say it again, The Depth of the Donut. It just bears saying. According to all rabbinic and halachic sources from centuries upon centuries, latkes, and it's a direct quote, again. And this rabbi is Ashkenazi, by the way, so don't even go to the, okay. Latkes, and I quote, latkes are an inferior choice overall. Wait, not this, I didn't say and quote. Donuts are vastly preferable. I don't know if vastly was underlined or italicized, much more significant on a halachic and philosophical level. End quote. I know that many of you may be disappointed. Some of you might see their life completely upended, but the law is the law, and I know you thought highly of latkes. They're just a minor detail in the vastness of the donut of Jewish history. I apologize for all the latke lovers. Isn't your mind blown? I told you you were going to leave. You were not going to leave here the way you came in. I mean, your life is now changed forever. You will never look a latke in the eye the same way you ever did. We have donuts for you tonight, by the way. You're welcome. Where are we? You know, it's getting long. We're going to skip the meditation if that's okay with you. Let's go with, not by might. We have to do that. On page 3 of your handout.
Not by might and not by power, but by Spirit alone shall we all live in peace. Not by might and not by power, but by Spirit alone shall we all live in peace. The children sing, children dream, and their tears may fall, but we'll hear them call, and another song will rise, another song will rise, another song will rise. Not by might and not by power, but by Spirit alone shall we all live in peace. Not by might and not by power, but by Spirit alone shall we all live in peace. The children sing, children dream, and their tears may fall, but we'll hear them call, and another song will rise, another song will rise, another song will rise. Not by might and not by power, but by Spirit alone shall we all live in peace. Not by might and not by power, but by Spirit alone shall we all live in peace. Not by might, not by power. Shalom.
So here's what I want to do. I want to sing Beyado right now. And as you sing, I will read the list of our members on the healing list. And you're welcome to also call out in the space as the song is sung. The names of those you are including tonight in the healing circle. Hillary Wilson, Danielle Clark, Craig Wilson, Phyllis Levin, Maxwell Bernard, David Mark, John Gorham, Susan Austin, Donald Meadow, Kelly Reagan, Katie Margaret Bank, Russell Kaufman, Lynn Carroll, Amy Lowe, Eileen Wellens, Sid Hoover, Zeke Amstetter, Alan Walton, Amy Diane Bork, Arlene Ross, Juana Reyes, Sydney Hanayon, Abigail Levy, Greg Lesnar, Janet Lewine, Katie Berry, Freda, Elke Bat Shulamit, Michael Burkhardt, Sue Ann Abel, Mikey Stern, Sarah Posey, Rabbi Michael Lerner, Mugu Vara, Ethan Patashnik, Shaki Varahim, Edward Diaz, Dagan Diaz Creer, Emily Oakley, Dennis Oswald, Pam Lesnar, Shelley Cohen, Adam Frere, Elizabeth Heath, Michael Hall, Sandy Morris, Steve Lucas, Anita Vargas, Elliot Applebaum, Jenny Leonard, Jerry Pettis, Laura Glutz, Lawrence Stern, Label Cohen, Simon Garcia, Kathy Sims, Dorida Regan, Eddie Tansman, Elaine Lees, Greg Kenny, Janet Crowley, Patrick Dillon, Zoe Chaya Young, Marisa LeCain, Celia Curran, Chris Werner Mokhtar.
Adonai liebe
I shall not fear.
Adonai liebe
We are on page 13 and we rise for the Kaddish. And before we share the mourner's prayer, we remember those you have inscribed on our memorial lists on this Shabbat. We hold in light of memory those who have made their transition in the past weeks, mourning Shiva, mourning Shloshim with them. Danielle Glosser, Donna Glosser's brother. Michael Michael ben Yaakov and Vesara, brother of Rob Spiegel, brother-in-law of Marianne. Chris Werner Mochel, friend of Marianne and Rob. Samuel Gersonovich, good friend of Sharon and Jean Leroy. Harry Loffer, Stu Heller, friend. Pauline Morris, her Shloshim is today. Her 38 days is today. Linda Morris's mother-in-law. Stephen Sondheim, beloved. We all also, in light of memory, those who have made their transition this past year. Bill Harris, Michael Ruff, Irvin Faludi, Rebecca Risman, Paul Ponton, Mark Sinclair, Carol Cohen, Carl Robert Finkelstein, Judy Turin, Ava Boyadosh, Daryl Summers, Gloria Funston, Yitzchak Leib ben Bertha Aharon, Norman Lubitsch, Marcia Whelan, Jack Cohen, Jeffrey Hollingsworth, Francesca Tolchin, Jaden Jones, Patrick Henhelt, Stephen Skip Wayne, Mike Levin, Jean Warner, Willard Harlow, Elizabeth Egan, Gilbert Feldman, Lavi Cohen, Ruth Veldy Cowan, Marshall Hartman, Janet Koloff, Roberta Allor. On this Shabbat, we'll also hold in light of memory those whose yahrzeits, the anniversary of their transition, happens at this time of the year. Samvang Sisamuth, Serilu Koden, Mark Antonio Florian Corona, Klaus Schuler, Carolyn McPherson, Jerry Todd, Dennis Reagan, Pamela Caulfield Balch, Ephraim Glosser, Don Krupkin. And we hold all those we remember tonight in our hearts, in our minds, as we share the Mourner's Kaddish together. Yitgadal v'yitkadash shemei Rabba, be'alama divrach cherutei v'yamlich malchutei, b'chayechon u'v'yomechon, u'v'chaye b'chol beit Yisrael, ba'agala u'v'zman kariv, v'imru amen. Yehi shmei Rabba mevarach le'alam u'lalmei almaya, yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh, v'yithadar v'yithale v'yithalal shmei dekudsha berichu, le'ela min kol bichata v'shirata, tush bechata v'nechemata, da'amiran be'alma, v'imru amen. Yehi shlama Rabba min shemaya, v'chaim aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael, v'imru amen. Oseh shalom b'mromav, hu ya'aseh shalom, aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael, ve'al kol yoshvei tevel, v'imru amen. May the one who creates harmony above make peace for us, for all the household of Israel, and for all the peoples of the world. And let us say, Amen. Amen. So we have our favorite song, the Chanukah song, so stay for just a few more minutes. But right now, passing around is what we need for a quick oneg, which is, thank you, man. You need a cup of wine, which is coming around. A little, I get a whole donut there, but it's just for show. We're going to do the blessing over the donut as well, since now we know how important that is. And then a little piece of challah. And as those items are passed around, there. Now you know why God gave us two hands. I have a couple of announcements to make. Tomorrow we're going to continue studying Moses ben Maimon, the son of Maimon, who talked the first about the donuts in the 12th century. His father wrote that book. Moses Maimonides wrote The Guide of the Perplexed. I don't think there's any mention of donuts there. But we're continuing our study of that amazing book of philosophy, and whether you've been with us since the beginning or you're jumping in, it's an amazing, amazing piece of literature, and you're absolutely invited. Second, and extremely important, I know we're all distracted here by the oneg coming around, but I need you to pay attention to me right now. December 12th, just a few days from now, we're calling for a town hall meeting. It will be a Zoom town hall meeting. Probably one of the most important meetings of our community in recent time. We're inviting you to discuss what I believe is Bet Alef at a crossroads. We're inviting you to come and talk to us and with us about this vision that we're putting together now, about how we want to transform and evolve and expand the offering of our community. We've started, as you know, through online, but there's so much more to that we are thinking of doing, that is going to require commitment, that is going to require financial investment, that is going to require us to be able to face change in the next few months. We are at a crossroad, and please come talk with us. Come discover what I believe is going to be amazing for Bet Alef. I want to share my excitement with you. It is December 12th. It's on Zoom. It's from 5 p.m. to 6:30. Book that time. Please join us. I can't say it loud enough. And I hope that earned enough time for everybody to get your cup of wine or juice, whatever is fitting for you. Join me for the blessing. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, borei peri hagafen. Amen. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kideshanu b'mitzvotav ורצה בנו בשבת קודשו באהבה וברצון הנחילנו זיכרון למעשה וראשית כי הוא יום תחילה למקראי קודש זכר ליציאת מצרים כי בנו בחרת ואותנו קידשת מכל העמים בשבת קודשך באהבה וברצון הנחלתנו. ברוך אתה אדוני מקדש השבת. אמן. לחיים.
לחיים.
All right. We have to start with the donut because once you say the blessing over the challah, you can't eat anything. Well, there's no other blessing to say, sorry. So the donuts that you were given are kosher, as you can see from the sample here. They don't have a hole, and they are Kabbalistic. So that's what you are having. The blessing is Boré Mine Mezonot. Boré Mine Mezonot. Baruch Ata Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam borei minei mezonot. Eat up. Yum. All right, now you can have your challah and eat it too. Baruch Ata Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam המוציא לחם מן הארץ. אמן. שבת שלום, חג שמח. Thank you, Sam.
Hanukkah, come light the menorah. Let's have a party, we'll all dance the hora. Gather round the table, we'll give you a treat. Sivivon to play with and latkes to eat. And while we are playing, the candles are burning low. One for each night they shed a sweet light to remind us of days long ago. One for each night they shed a sweet light to remind us of days long ago. Oy Hanukkah, ayon tefashena, alusticha, afreilecha, nitono chazena, alle nachten dreidlich spielen wir, Studiches mit Latkes essen wir, geschwindet sind Kinder, die Hanukkah liegt lecho. wunderbar, singen denn Wunder und tanzen fröhlichen Chor. So jeder war wunderbar, singen denn Wunder